We have mandatory catch and release in Oklahoma on Mondays and Fridays for paddlefish, but we honestly don't know how many are caught and released, survive, how many die, what our general mortality is. So my study this year is I'm going out with anglers, and when they catch a fish, after they're done taking pictures, I'll kind of document how they handled it, how it was landed, how bad the wound was. And after all that, I'll put an ultrasonic tag in that lasts 2 months, and we're able to track those fish, make sure they're moving, make sure they still continue their spawning run, so we can be sure that catch and release is something that's healthy for the fish, and we're not hurting the population by having that mandatory. And we'll kind of look at the first few days to see if there's any immediate mortality from the wounds they sustained and how they were handled. And then after that, we look to make sure they keep moving for the full 2-month life of the tag, to make sure there's not an infection that sets in or something else that does in the fish.
Running again. Yeah.
We actually tagged 4 today when we were out. The first one was a little small, but as you saw, Mike had some beginner's luck, and next thing you know, all he's snagging is 50-pound big old females. And when you're out there, you're snagging, and honestly, these fish are so big, when you first hit one, my gut instinct at least is, oh, I hit a log. And then all of a sudden that log starts pulling back and taking off to the side, and you realize it's a fish. And then you're coming in, you're using big treble hooks, and they're kind of hanging out of their side because you don't hook them in the mouth. And there might be a little blood, but it doesn't bleed a whole lot usually. The faster you get them back in the water, the faster that's going to clot up. But they'll have a little blood, but these fish are just remarkably tough. They'll handle that pretty well as long as it's not in their gills or something vital. And just releasing them quickly and getting them back in the water really does help. We're hoping to kind of, with this study, kind of just get in the anglers' heads how important it is to really care for what you're catching and handling them properly, you know, not slamming them around by the jaw or landing them through their gills, because that's really tough on these fish. They have a lot of arteries up there that deliver their blood and oxygen around their body. So by proper handling, we can almost make sure these fish are going to survive. Mike did a really good job when he was landing his fish. First time out there today, and yet it was almost instinct with him. Help grab him by the tail when he's lifting them around the boat for pictures. He's supporting their weight with his body if he needs to on those big ones, but he's handling them by the rostrum and the tail, which is really the best way to handle them, keep them healthy. If we saw a lot of mortality, they would probably develop a new way to restrict harvest without catch and release, because it's kind of pointless if the fish are being released and dying anyway. But if it is a very successful way and we need to reduce harvest further in the future, they might look at expanding that, because we really don't want to limit the opportunity. So as long as people can get out here and be fishing, and if they're still happy being out here fishing and not keeping a fish,
that was
why not?
Good fight there.
The first thing we're going to do when we get the fish on the boat is we'll take a length and weight, just so we have general information on that fish. I'll take an overall picture of the fish, and I'll take a close-up picture of the hook wound, so I have that recorded in case something happens to that fish. Next thing we do is we'll insert a jaw tag in its jaw. That way that fish has a unique number on it to identify it. Angler catches it, they can call it in and give us the 5-digit number, and we can say, yep, that's that fish. We can tell them about it a little bit. One of the last things I'll do is I'll put an ultrasonic transmitter and attach it to their dorsal fin. A little piece of wire we twist on there. It's a 2-month tag. That wire should rust out pretty soon, so that fish isn't stuck with it for the rest of its life. I will also take a syringe and inject it into the abdomen, and you put a little vacuum pressure on that, and if it's a female, it'll suck a few eggs out just to confirm that we know it's a female. As soon as we got all our information taken, release the fish, test the transmitter, make sure it's still pinging. There she is. And as far as we're concerned, once we hear it, that fish is on its way. And hopefully we hear it for another 2 months.